Wonderful. I believe we're live. Hello, everybody. If you can hear us, say hi in the chat. We're just going to hang out for a few minutes and then we'll introduce ourselves. I can see us on the screen now, so that's promising. Yeah, if you're here to watch, say hi. Unfortunately, you were not first, according to my chat. You were second, just to say. While we wait for a couple people to trickle in before we jump straight in, does anyone know who our guest speaker is today? Let's see if anyone can, if anyone recognizes Raj.
Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look
No
like
one knows who you are. Well, that's exciting because you can tell them all about yourself.
Yeah.
Was I first? You absolutely were first. Wonderful. 73 people are watching now, so that would imply that people can hear us and see us. Great. Well, I think we'll jump straight into it. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Will, and I'm the Fellowship Program Manager. My job is to make sure that the MLH Fellowship is a fantastic experience for all of our wonderful fellows. And I am joined today by Raj, who is one of our alumni from the program who collaborated with G Research. Raj, would you like to introduce yourself a little further?
Yeah, hello everybody. My name is Raaj Patel. I was a G Research Fellow last summer. I'm a senior electrical engineering student at Texas A&M University. I'm excited to be here.
Excellent. So you did the fellowship in the summer, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And how did you find out about the fellowship? What made you decide, this is cool, let me do this?
Yeah, so I was actually up at UT Dallas, University of Texas at Dallas, competing in a hackathon there that was MLH sponsored. And after the hackathon, we ended up placing, and they gave us a fast track for the MLH fellowship. So that was kind of my introduction to it. And that's when I first found out about it. And I was like, hey, I have this fast track. Let me do all this research. And I found out, this is a really great program. There's tons of different companies collaborating with people from all over the world. So that's kind of my introduction. And I was like, yeah, I need to apply to this and try to join this.
Nice. So you applied early last year, is that correct?
Yeah, I applied basically in December or January,
Okay.
and then ended up hearing back, I think 1 or 2 months before the fellowship program started.
Gotcha. And you applied for our open source program, which we now call software engineering, and you were paired with G Research. Now, did you know what G Research was when you found out that you were paired to them, or was this your first time hearing about them?
No, I had no idea what G Research was. I didn't even know it existed. I'd never heard of them before. So I kind of did a lot of Googling as soon as I heard I was assigned there and found it was, a really cool company, really, really smart people there, and super excited to work there and join their team.
Excellent. So you joined the fellowship with the G Research program, and you were working specifically with the Armada project. Could you give us a kind of a brief background on what the Armada project is?
Yeah, so the Armada project, a really, really large project. Basically, in one sentence, it's a multi-Kubernetes batch job scheduler. So basically, it's a way, if you have tons and tons of computational tasks that you need to get done, it allows you to cluster groups of servers together and then send all these jobs that you need to be run to that cluster. So at a high level, the G Research team had, these really big ML jobs or these really big neural nets that they needed to run. So they'd send it to an Armada server that would handle all the scheduling and then run all the tasks.
Nice, nice. Is this something you'd tampered with before, this sort of technology, or is this completely new to you and you had no idea what was going on?
So Armada sits above Kubernetes, which I had a little bit of experience with, kind of just deploying websites and APIs, but nothing to this scale or nothing, not used like this in any way before. So that was totally new to me, as well as the language that it was written in. It's written in Go primarily. And I had, maybe a little bit of experience, but most of it was new to me and it was a completely new experience.
That must have been somewhat challenging. How did you kind of find that, and how did you sort of overcome some of those hurdles in the first few weeks of the program?
Yeah, so it was a massive project. So I want to give a huge shout out to Rich, my manager from G Research. He was very instrumental in kind of helping point me in the right direction. And if I'm giving any tips to anybody else, it's don't try to understand the whole project. It's just way too big for one person. Really try to focus on what you've been assigned and figure out, where you need to work in, what files you need to be looking at, and just focus solely on that area of the code. And doing that was a huge help. Not trying to understand everything.
Yeah, I bet. It's so easy for people to go, well, if I was writing this small project for myself, I would know how everything goes together. So surely that works, with another project. But when the project is like hundreds and hundreds of lines of code, and not just lots of code, but complicated code, right? Uh, it's a little bit hard to comprehend how it all sticks together. And it's like, it's not the sort of thing where you can just like run it in your terminal and the whole thing just works. Like, you often
Yeah.
need like loads of API keys and setting up different things. And it's like a whole challenge in itself, just getting it to like run before you
Yeah.
even start writing code to it. Interesting. So, yeah, so you were doing this, you were collaborating with the Armada project. Did you do any exciting contributions while you were part of the project? Any kind of key highlights from it?
Yeah, so I would say my biggest and most difficult contribution was handling the job scheduler. So basically, my first issue was to ingest the jobs. So a user of the platform would kind of send, hundreds or maybe thousands of jobs to the tool. And my job was to kind of change the way that would operate behind the scenes. So I did a couple of main changes. The first was making it so it can handle multiple jobs in parallel. And then the second was making it so if there was an error, it kind of returned a better, more user friendly error that kind of gave them a little bit more detail about how to possibly solve the problem. So that was my main contribution. It was a really, really difficult challenge. Once again, huge shout out to Rich and Sebastian for helping me on throughout that project. That took me, maybe 2 months or almost the entire program just on that one issue.
That must have been a really great feeling once you got those contributions merged. Speaking of GitHub, was this your first time like contributing to a project on GitHub that wasn't your own? Had you made like a pull request before?
Yeah, so I had this wasn't anything like too new in that department, but the MLH Fellowship like had great supporting material the first week. So, it had been a little while for me since I've done it, and our first week was basically a revisor on GitHub. We had like a team project that we worked on, and we all were practicing making PRs and making contributions and reviewing each other's code. And it was kind of just like a great, review before we actually go do this for a company.
Nice. Now, so for some extra context for folks tuning in, the project that Raj is talking about, we call it the Orientation Project. And it's basically just like a website where all fellows are trying to contribute to it at the same time. Now, did you contribute to the JavaScript one or the Python one, or a bit of both?
I contributed mainly towards the Python one, so I was working on the
Okay.
backend stuff. Yep.
I think a lot of people ended up using the Python one. Did you run into merge conflicts at all?
I did, or not merge. Maybe I did merge conflicts. I think I did. But my main conflict was like with the linter. I was fighting the linter for a while.
If it makes you feel any better, when I wrote the template, I then added the linter, and the linter was like absolutely crazy at me. It was like, this is the worst code I've ever seen in my life. I was like, wow, I didn't think it was too bad personally, but okay, we've got a little bit of work to do here. 20 minutes later, it was like 10 out of 10. I was like, wow, that was the worst 20 minutes of my life. But yeah, those linters can be brutal. Yeah, someone in the chat, we all fight with the linter. Yeah, and if anyone else has had challenging times with the linter, do let us know. Yeah, I think that was an eye-opening moment for a lot of fellows of, oh, like I have to write my code in sort of a consistent format. And I mean, hey, the merge code did look like it was pretty easy to read and like pretty consistent. So there's a reason we use these things. But interesting that you found the linter a struggle, because so did I. And I was not even a fellow trying to do it. Interesting. So what skills did you learn while you were contributing to this project? So obviously you hadn't really done much Go or Kubernetes to this sort of scale. Yeah, what kind of skills did you pick up along the way?
Yeah, so I'll kind of break that into two categories. So one will be like the coding skills I've learned, and the other will be like the team skills. So the team skills, like the biggest thing was like communicating and like clearly defining the project or task that you've been assigned. So, we're working on issues, we get assigned an issue, but often, more than not, the issue is not very clearly defined, or the solution that they want is not very clearly defined. So a big thing that I learned is making sure that, you're talking with your manager or talking with the person that created the issue to make sure that your code or your proposed code is actually going to solve the problem the way that they want it to be solved. So that kind of level of communication was huge. And then the
Interesting.
second with the team,
Oh,
oh,
carry on,
sorry, go
carry
ahead.
on, carry on.
The second with the team was kind of working with my pod. So we had these stand ups and these retrospectives. And even though we were all working on different projects, kind of hearing about other people's problems, kind of you maybe, give us some advice or, think of approach the problem in a different way that they thought of. And even though they're not working on the project, that feedback could be very meaningful. And it was, multiple times throughout the fellowship. So I thought that was a great idea. And just kind of learning stuff like that was great. And then the
Interesting.
other part, the coding aspect was, mainly around Go, was kind of learning all the intricacies of Go, using slices correctly, putting things in parallel, nil pointer dereference, just the Go language basically was huge. And another shout out to Rich for helping me through that process. That was very difficult, but I feel confident with Go. I really like it now. So that was a great entrance.
I was gonna ask, what do you think of Go now that you've actually like got stuck in? Especially because I know if you're anything like me, right? It's frustrating when you don't get something straight away, right? You're like, oh, this is annoying because I can't make it work like Python or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And then you kind of get over that, like you have a breakthrough, and you're like, oh, actually, this is pretty neat. How long did it take you to have this sort of love for Go?
Yeah, so it really just took me, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to really like Go. Like, it didn't take long for me to, appreciate the way it was written and, all the intricacies of Go. And then from there, it's just I've used it on pretty much all my projects now. I love the language. It's been a great tool for me. Yeah, that's pretty much
Excellent.
it.
Would you recommend that others here learn Go? Is it something that you think is valuable over another language? Yeah. So, what of the benefits you found from learning Go, other than obviously doing the Armada project?
Definitely. So I think Go is kind of exploding as a language. I see a lot of companies, I've been applying to companies, and a lot of people are looking for Go developers. So I would highly recommend it. If you're not familiar with Go, it kind of looks like Python. So if you're familiar with Python and you're going to Go, it looks very similar. It's not too hard to read, but it is super performant. It performs like at the C++ level. It has a really fast compiler and it executes really quickly. So it's kind of like a best of both worlds type thing. And if you haven't learned it, I highly recommend doing so.
Nice, because Python is not renowned for being the quickest language in the world. So yeah, very cool, very cool. If you've been learning Go or you're a fan of Go, let us know in the chat. I'd be curious to see how many people are Go fans. Um, so you mentioned about when you were, through the program that you gained a lot of like the soft skills, right?
Mhm.
The collaborating with other people, the communication piece. Was that something you'd, interacted with much previous to the fellowship, maybe through other experiences, or is it something that you kind of felt you massively improved on as part of the program? I'm curious.
Yeah, so not to the same level. So as a student, most of the times when I was working in teams, it was with other students, right? And we're kind of all learning together and collaborating on a product or, a group assignment together in class. Versus in this case, I was working with people who had tons and tons of more experience than I did. That they were just, a book for me. I could ask them questions. I could learn as much as I wanted to learn from. So that was a big shift. And I thought it was very advantageous, right? You can kind of get
Mm,
out what you want to put into it. If you don't want to learn that much and you don't want to ask a lot of questions, then that's totally fine. That's up to you. Or if you want to, learn as much as you can and ask them questions every day or have a call with them every day, once again, you can if they have the time. So it's kind of up to you. I thought it was a great experience. Maybe if you have a lot more time to dedicate to the fellowship, you could ask a lot more questions and learn a lot more. Versus if you don't have as much time, then you can kind of take a step back. It just gave you a lot of flexibility, and I found that really advantageous.
nice, nice. Did you have any fun memories from interacting with the pod via, you said about the stand-ups and the retros? Any fun memories from that?
Yeah, so we had a couple game nights that were a blast. We did, I think it was called Scribble.io. It's like someone you have to draw something, and everybody had to like guess and keep drawing. And those were always a blast. I love seeing people's drawings. So I didn't expect to have that kind of fun in the fellowship, and that was a great time. I'm really glad it happened.
Nice, nice. Wonderful. So you had a great time doing the Armada project. Sounds like you learned a huge amount with a very steep learning curve, but you were able to sort of, you know, figure it out as you went along. Had a good time with your pod and you built on your soft skills. Um, as you started getting towards the end of the program, I imagine you were starting to think about what's next, right? What do I do from here? I'm curious. What were you thinking? Like, what was next for you after the fellowship?
Yeah, so going into my senior year of college, right, I was looking for, a full-time job, looking to try to figure out what I was going to do after college. I really enjoyed working with Rich, my manager, and the G Research company as a whole, the growth team specifically. So I was trying to look at, return options for G Research as well as applying to other companies. So I kind of had a call with my manager, Rich, and started looking through options, whether they were hiring, and he kind of pointed me in some right directions with G Research.
Nice. Um, Now, while you were doing the fellowship, maybe before, did you have an idea of the sort of career you wanted to go into? Maybe that was more like systems based, more like DevOpsy, or maybe more data, or maybe more just like web. Did you have a sort of idea, or you were just sort of seeing where you ended up and what excited you at the time?
Yeah, so I had no idea, right? So I'm an electrical engineering student, so we're not doing much software in class, right? It's a lot
Mm,
of circuits and hardware basically. So going into the fellowship, I had, an open mind. I really just wanted to work on software. I didn't mind where. And then after the fellowship, kind of same mindset. I was open to anything, trying something new.
mm.
So yeah, no real preference. I'm glad I kind of got thrown in on the server administration stuff. I thought that was really interesting.
Nice, nice. So you mentioned how you were looking for a new role to, once you finish university, which you're graduating next July. Did you say, or was it earlier that
May,
May?
May.
May. See, I remember. You're graduating in May. You're starting to look for that role, full-time role after you graduate. Um, you started applying to some roles as well as chatting to G Research, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But did the fellowship provide you with any skills or resources to help you with finding these roles or help you understand like how you can best ace the process?
Yeah, definitely. So there was a couple things. The first was during the program, near the end, we had kind of career days. So we would have people come into our pod and give a presentation on how to ace a technical interview or how to ace a behavioral interview, or maybe practicing some leak code problems. So I found that to be very beneficial, and it's kind of a good place to get started. I wouldn't say you want to end it there, but it kind of shows you how to get started with your interview prep. So maybe you continue doing leak code on your own, or find another website that'll practice doing behavioral interviews for you. It's a great place to start. And then after the program, they had like a careers portal, which I found to be really helpful, which MLH has partnered with multiple companies in a bunch of different industries. And you can kind of apply directly through the MLH portal, which I actually took advantage of. I found that to be very helpful.
Nice, nice. Um, cool. So you're starting to apply to some roles, but you're also still chatting to G Research. Did you actually end up having any interviews with any of these companies? And yeah, how did you find that?
Yeah, so I found out that your research was opening a new location in Dallas, and I kind of asked Rich about that, and he kind of pointed me in the right direction with somebody at the Dallas office. So after speaking with Alex, another person at MLH, he put me together with a recruiter from the Dallas office, and I actually just finished kind of interviewing with them at G Research for a software engineering role. Yeah.
Nice. And those interviews went quite well, I hear. You actually got offered a full-time role next year. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so last week actually, I got the offer from G Research for a full time role in Dallas in software engineering, and I'm excited to say that I accepted the position. I start in July, so they're really flexible with the dates, and it's going to be right after I graduate, which is fantastic.
Nice, nice. You must feel feeling pretty, good about that. Is that with Rich as well, or is that with a different team?
No, so that'll be on a completely different team, unfortunately. Hopefully, I
Ah.
get a still call with Rich and maybe have a couple meetings with him a week. That would be great. But he's on the open source team, and this is with the Dallas office team.
Oh, interesting. So completely different shift. Do you even know what project you're going to be working with, or is that still to be confirmed?
No, I have no idea. So it's all up in the air right now. Hopefully find out soon. I'm very eager to know.
Nice, nice. Few people saying congratulations. Yeah, no,
Thank
this
you.
is really awesome.
Thanks.
Um, did you even like think this was going to be a possibility when you started the program, or yeah, how did you? Yeah, what were your thoughts on that?
No, not at all. I thought it was just going to be, one and done little summer internship, but I'm really excited that, people actually put in the effort to help me transition this into a full-time role. And I'm really grateful for that.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to see how well you do and what you get up to at G Research. Do you actually know what the role entails? Like any languages? Are you still doing Go, maybe Python, or again, still very early days?
Very up in the air. I have no idea. I'm hoping it's go, fingers crossed, but no idea.
Yeah, now for your new love of Go. It'd be a shame
Thank
if you weren't writing Go, but maybe
you.
they'll get you writing something like Rust or something completely different.
Hopefully
I
that'd be cool to learn.
feel like Rust is the next logical progression from Go. Maybe
Yeah.
people in the chat could tell me I'm wrong, like Python, Rust. Well, you got to put a bit of C in there as well, maybe. But yeah, very, very cool. Um, Now, obviously, you've done like you haven't come from a traditional background, you could say. Still kind of linked, but a lot of people end up doing like a computer science degree or engineering, software engineering degree. But you come from like an electronics engineering background where you don't actually do as much coding as maybe you would in a different degree. Um, yeah, you still interested in potentially exploring that avenue of going down a more electronics engineering route, or are you excited to go down the software development process? I'm curious.
Yeah, so I kind of kept both open going into my senior year, right? So I like the hardware aspect. I'm on our FSAE team here, and I find it really interesting, really cool. But after the summer internship, where I was actually coding the whole summer, I really, really enjoyed that. So that's kind of what I've been applying to most of the time, and I think that's where I'm going to keep my career going.
Nice. What sort of programming did you end up doing at university? I think you mentioned you did a bit of Python. Is that correct?
Yeah, so just some basic Python scripts for a lot of stuff, and then for classes, it was mostly like really low level stuff. So, I'm an electrical engineer, so we're taking like computer engineering classes. We're writing ARM 8 assembly, x86, some C code, Verilog, just really, really low level stuff that
Mm.
you wouldn't do as a software engineer.
Nice. Yeah, I did a little bit of Verilog once, and yeah, never again. Very, very cool. Um, so yeah, you're joining G Research in July. You're finishing up your degree, and it all started this year, right? You started with applying to the fellowship at the beginning of the year. You went through the process. You got accepted, and you got paired with G Research. You learned a bunch of new stuff, and now here you are with a full-time offer waiting for you at the middle of next year. That must feel pretty good. Yeah, you must feel excited for this next step. What's the plan now between now and when you graduate? Yeah, what are you going to do to sort of prepare yourself for the new role?
Yeah, so it's been a great year. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. But to prepare for the role, I guess just kind of keep honing my skills, especially around the soft skills, right? So
Mm.
I'm a student, like I'm guessing many of you in the chat are. And in school, you don't learn about a lot of these soft skills that you do in industry, right? So just kind of, maybe watching a YouTube video here and there or talking with people who are currently in industry and figuring out how to best fit in and how to work in a company. That's totally new to me.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to open it up now to the chat. I'd love to hear what questions you have for myself and Raj, whether they could be about the fellowship specifically, or we can talk a little bit more about Raj's experience as a fellow and how the fellowship has helped gear him up to be, going into G Research with a full-time role. Not something I imagine Raj had in his mind, several months ago, but anything is possible. So couple fellowship questions. Someone goes, can I can't actually read that because my camera's in the way. Can graduate students apply to the fellowship program as well? Absolutely, anyone can apply to the program, whether you're a career changer, you're new, new to software development, or maybe a university student. Raj was did you do a 3 or 4 year course?
It's a 4-year course. Yeah.
Okay, so you applied in your third year, but doesn't mean we've had people who've, applied afterwards, earlier than that, or didn't even do university or college in the first place. Tips on how to build a portfolio for the technical part. We kind of brushed over this quite quickly, actually, but what did you submit to the fellowship as your code sample? And how did you show us how that you knew how to program?
I think it was like a streaming tool. I'm not entirely sure. I don't remember, but generally I can answer this with just like work on a lot of projects outside of class, right? So I'm an electrical engineer. Once again, I think I've said that way too many times now, but I worked on a lot of projects that were open source on my GitHub. So I had tons and tons to talk about, right? So, maybe let's say you submit one, but your interviewer isn't very familiar with that, or you want to show off something else, right? You're more than welcome to kind of do that in the interview. That's kind of what I did. Is I said, hey, on this project I really enjoyed this bits, on this project I really enjoyed this bits. So just having a lot of experience and just creating stuff goes a long way. And then specifically with MLH, right, they like to sponsor these hackathons, so that's a great way to work on a bunch of different projects. You're just doing a day project, and you can kind of build up a portfolio really, really fast.
Absolutely. And back from my hackathon days, I made some really, 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 bad projects. As in, they were cool and they did cool things, but like they had no purpose and they were scrappy, right? But it's the stories that I got from those, right?
Yeah.
I learned really interesting things. I discovered interesting bugs. I used tools I'd never used before, right? They all make really good conversation pieces in an interview, right? I once used this blockchain SDK, right? And I had some real challenges trying to use it, but I learned a lot from the process of trying to integrate it, and actually figured out that it wasn't me that was the problem; it was the SDK. So that made me feel 10 times better. So yeah, the more things you build, the more stories you get, and like Raj said, that experience is very, very valuable in helping you progress. Wonderful. Someone asks, how many times can we apply for the fellowship? Only once per batch, and we do 3 batches a year. But you are welcome to keep applying as much as you like. So if you maybe, applied all year, but you haven't been able to get a seat, you can keep applying. We're never going to stop you from doing that. And someone asks, I have missed the fellow prep program. So if I will apply this time for fellowship, will it be impact any negative point of view for my selection? Absolutely not. We're actually not running the fellowship prep program at the moment because the prep program is designed to help us find really good talent. But because we have such a small number of seats at the moment, unfortunately, there is less of a need to find people because we have so many people applying in the first place. So unfortunately, we can't run the prep program right now, and we would love to in the future, especially once we have more seats available in the main fellowship program. So there's absolutely no negative impact here. It helps you get into the program a bit easier. But if you, like Raj said, right, do loads of hackathons, do loads of projects, you'll stand out no problem at all. Someone asked, can we do a fellow more than once? Raj, you only did the fellowship once, right? You haven't done it twice.
Just once. Yeah.
So Raj only did it once, but we have had people who've returned maybe in a different project, doing something completely different. So you can reapply for sure. How do we know if our contribution/project is enough complex to get into the fellowship? Specifically site reliability. So site reliability is an interesting one because that's got a slightly lower technical bar. But we still need to be able to clearly see. And in that program, we want to see that you can write in Python, right? A lot of DevOps and site reliability engineers do a lot of stuff in Python. So we want to clearly understand that you understand the fundamentals of Python. You can write some functions, you can write some code, you know how it will work. So when we start introducing the SRE and the DevOps and the PE terms, you're able to digest those and figure that out. And the Python's not a blocker for you. So I recommend that you, again, like Raj said, go to some hackathons, focus on writing some Python, maybe pick up a cloud platform. There's normally free cloud platform credits. Build something with a cloud platform, and that will get you in a really good spot. Actually, Raj, I'm curious, what have you built at hackathon? The one that you got the fast track. What did you write? What languages and stuff did you use?
Ooh, so that was a while ago. Let's see, that was last year. I don't remember exactly what we used on the back end, but we built like an iPhone app basically, and we built it in Vue.js. So if you're familiar with React, it's very similar. And then we ported it to iOS using Capacitor.js. So it was mostly JavaScript based, and we ended up just winning, the challenge. So that was that.
Nice. Lots of JavaScript.
Yeah, yeah. And then I guess kind of to relate it to this question, actually, we deployed it to Google Cloud, which I think was really valuable. So in like these hackathons, the companies that you're applying for, they'll kind of have like a workshop or a speaker shop. And if you attend those, the ones that they pushed was Google Cloud Platform. So kind of at the end of our project, we decided to spend like an extra hour and a half and figure out how to deploy this to Google Cloud. And I think that was really valuable.
Nice. Had you used Google Cloud before, or is this a first time experience?
No, that was my first time using it in the way we were trying to. So we used GKE, which is like the Kubernetes engine,
Gotcha.
and that was totally new to me.
The thing I like about Google Cloud is everything's named relatively sensibly, unlike some other cloud platforms out there.
Yeah, I agree.
Wonderful. I know you already talked about it a little bit, but what did you do with your, with G Research as part of the fellowship program?
Yeah, so I was working on a project called Armada. It's open source at armadaproject.io if you want to look it up a little bit more. Basically, they would give me a PR, one issue at a time, and my job was just kind of try to work through that issue, find a solution, and then actually implement that solution, and then work to get it merged.
Nice, nice. Someone asks, how did you get matched with G Research? Well, this was very out of your control. You didn't do anything to get specifically matched to G Research. We matched you to G Research. Now, I'm curious, do you know why you got matched to G Research, or like you just got matched to G Research and that's as much?
I have no idea. I'm very grateful that I did, but I have no idea.
Yeah, so a lot of our partners sometimes they have specific requirements because, especially in like Raj's case, right, they're keen to hire after the program, and this is they're running their sort of internship, you could say. G Research is actually one of the more relaxed partners when it comes to like geographic requirements, or like you need to be in your penultimate year of university or college. But yeah, G Research is one of the more flexible ones. We thought Raj would be a really good fit, and so that's where we went there. Whereas some more people, Raj might have not been a fit for, a partner that wanted someone in Europe, a little bit challenging when you were in Texas, or someone who wanted someone in like APAC. So that's how the matching process works. It can be a slow and tedious process. So if you do apply and then you hear that you're in final review and you go, great, that means I'm in, right? No, we have to go through the matching process, and that's where we've got to make sure that you align with a project, and if we can find a project that fits your skill set, we'll put you in. And so in this case, Raj was a really good fit for the Armada project. Armada were really happy. So that's how the matching process works. Can a professional apply for the fellowship? Absolutely. You don't necessarily need to have a couple of years of experience, but obviously the more software engineering experience that you have, the better. This could be a good opportunity for you to maybe have a switch. Let's say you're a big JavaScript person, but now you want to go into Python. This could be a good opportunity for you to make that change. What kind of code sample is best? We kind of already covered this, but hackathons, go to hackathons and build out some big projects, use some sponsor tools, and generally get stuck in. It's probably the best. Anything else you'd like to add there, Rod?
No, I think that's it. If you constantly show that you're learning something new, I think that also gives you a little bit of an edge.
Wonderful. How many people can get into the fellowship program? Do you remember how many people were in the program in the summer when you joined?
I think there was maybe like 10 in my pod, 9 or 10.
Were you in summer A or summer B?
I was in summer A.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So
But
summer
I think
A
there's
was our
multiple
smaller
pods
one.
going on, right?
Yeah, summer A I think had 2 pods, maybe
Okay.
more. Summer B was much bigger. But yeah, it can be at the moment, unfortunately, it's like 20, 30 seats. But we're hoping we'll be able to have hundreds of seats available in the next 12 months. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, you said you had about 10 people in your pod. Were they all G Research fellows? Was there a mix?
No, so it was a really broad mix. So there was only 2 people working on my project. It was myself and Kanu Mike. So that was kind of nice having somebody else to struggle with the project at the start together with. You're not on your own. And then I think Bolahan was also assigned to G Research. So we had 3 of us at G Research, and then everybody else was on different companies working on different projects.
Gotcha. Interesting. Did they have much experience with Go, or were you both sort of like brand new and fresh to Go when you started?
Yeah, so I was the only one working on the Go side of Armada, actually. So Mike was working on the React front end for it, and then I think Bolahan was doing Go as well, but on a different project. I can't remember.
Gotcha. So a bit of variety, but I'm sure you all did a little bit of pair programming and
Yeah.
figuring some stuff out together.
Yeah, a lot of struggling together.
Wonderful. Someone asks, I've been applying to the fellowship, but I haven't heard back. I'd recommend that you drop an email to fellowship@mlh.io. We can have a look into it and figure out what's going on there. But you should have got a rejection email. Maybe check your spam. But if you haven't been accepted, then do check your spam. We've got some more questions. Let's have a quick look to see. This is a good one actually for you, Raj. What was your level of programming skills before you got into the fellowship?
Ooh, that's kind of hard to quantify for myself, but I would say like I could build a product, right? So my main thing was hackathons. I felt very confident that I could go into a hackathon, maybe not win, but I could go into the hackathon and I could come out with a working product or a working application in whatever language the team decided. So that's kind of the level I was at, just being kind of comfortable with my coding abilities.
Nice, nice. That goes nicely into my next question. Did you have any open source contributions when you started?
Um, Technically, yes. So not like large open source projects per se, but the code that I wrote was open source. So I guess technically, I would highly recommend doing that. Right? If you let anybody else look at your project, I think that goes a long way. So yes, technically.
100%. I mean, like when we review people for the fellowship, we love to have a good nose for your GitHub and see what you've been up to. If you give GitHub's got nothing on it, it's very hard for us to gauge what you've been up to. That's obviously challenging because if you go and do, go and do an internship where the company's all private, you can't put that on your GitHub. But hackathons or other like personal projects are a great way to put, fill your GitHub up. Now, how did you come up with some of the ideas for these projects that you did at hackathons and stuff? Do you have a process or you just come up with them?
Yeah, so no process at all. And honestly, this is probably the hardest part of the hackathon, in my opinion. Every time I go to one, we try to have a slightly different team or at least one new member of our team. And it's always a debate. The project making process and the project decision pipeline is always a big debate and it's a big challenge. But I would say just kind of letting everybody come up with their own ideas and then all coming to like the drawing board at the end and maybe bouncing off each other's ideas has worked out best for us.
Nice, nice. I always find that the hardest. Like I could easily spend the first few hours of a hackathon just like coming up with ideas, maybe building a really basic prototype that's like, and then realizing that actually this is rubbish and I need to throw it out the window and try again, right? Like there's no point. Like you like write like 10 lines of code and you're like, this isn't gonna work. Like
Yeah, yeah, no, that's happened a couple times.
we've got a good question actually. Is it possible to attend the fellowship in parallel with your studies? I assume you were actually free over the summer when you did your fellowship, or were you still studying when you did it?
Yeah, so I was done with my main semesters, right? But in the US, we can take like a couple summer classes. So I think I took like an English class over summer at the same time. It was just remote, pretty easy, but you definitely can. There are people who were like enrolled as a full-time student during the process, and it's a lot to manage. So I expect to be really busy, but I think it's definitely doable.
Cool. Yeah, 100%. Can a React e-commerce website as a code sample be selected for the fellowship? I mean, it depends. If it's a does the various different things and like functions correctly, then yeah, absolutely. If it's like literally just a pretty front end that doesn't do anything, less so. Unless the project that we're trying to assign someone to is about making pretty front ends that don't do much, which is possible, then like yeah, it could be totally a good project. When did the batch start? We're going to be starting our next program at the end of January. So if you're interested, head over to fellowship.mlh.io where you can sign up today. And we'll also be publishing our next dates for the summer and stuff on there in the next few months. So keep a close eye out for that. Someone asks, let's see what other questions people have. There's loads of good questions, but I think we've answered most of them. Any questions that you see in the chat that you think would be that you'd like to jump in on?
I don't think so. I would say a lot of these questions are around kind of this starter project. And when I'm working on a starter project, I would just say like ask to yourself like, is this project I'm submitting, is this a good representation of my skills? Like, does this really
Mm.
display what I'm capable of? So ask yourself that when you're kind of submitting that project. And if it's an old project, maybe that doesn't adequately show what you're capable of, maybe start a quick, new project and submit that one instead.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I don't know you if you've applied to the fellowship, right? Your GitHub is the first
Mhm.
ever opportunity I've seen at what you've done. And if the project you've submitted is a really basic, like HTML file, maybe there's like messy commits, there's no instructions, or the README is a bit messy. It doesn't give me the best first impression, right? Same as if you meet anyone, right? You want to make sure that you like come across correctly, right? So make sure that code sample has had lots of effort in, even just in like the little bits that aren't necessarily as important as you think, but they are really important, like the documentation, the structure of the repository. Have you used a git ignore? Have you committed a load of like, credentials that you shouldn't have committed? All those sort of things are really important to think about, because it really makes you go, oh, this person's like, knows what they're doing. They've made a bit of a polished repo. And you can use stuff like Global Hack Week to help you learn those skills. So I totally recommend it. Wonderful. Well, I think we're coming up to time, so I think this is a really good opportunity to wrap things up. But I've got one last question for you, Raj. If you had any sort of final words of wisdom for people who potentially want to get into the fellowship, what advice would you give them?
Ooh, let's see. I would say keep learning. Like being a fast learner or, constantly willing to learn is something that I think not just the MLH fellowship looks for, but all sorts of companies look for, right? If you can prove that, hey, you may not know the skills now for, to be a good member or to be a good fellow, but you're really fast at learning these skills and you're eager to learn stuff, then that just kind of sets you apart from the competition, right? So kind of showing that you're eager to learn, always learning, always looking to improve yourself, I think would be, a great thing to have.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Raj. Really do appreciate you joining us today, and best of luck with your, new role at G Research next year. We can't wait to see how you do. But yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. And next up, we have Wikipedia races happening on Discord in just a few minutes. So head over there, and you can find out a little bit more about that.
Thanks,
But yeah,
guys.
happy hacking, everyone.